So I've had 82 fights to date, but every fight that I've won, which is roughly 57, I get a medal for it. So I have roughly 57 to 63 medals and 5 belts. I like the belts. Community justice services was something that I personally wanted to pursue because it was something very important and valuable to me to serve my community in any way that I could. It was really important for me to help others in this life. We focused a lot on counseling and social work and programs, correction facilities, and how to reform individuals who are coming from unfortunate circumstances or who kind of had a bad hand dealt to them. But now people are starting to understand why these things are happening to individuals. And now people are starting to understand why it's so important to take care of our community so that we can help people become better versions of themselves. My fondest memory from Humber was the professors and how open they were to helping us and how open they were to having open-ended discussions, sometimes being vulnerable even with the students with their own personal experiences within the field, giving honest advice. I felt I could really open up to a lot of professors and personally be vulnerable with them, and it was very safe. And they really made a deep impact where to this day I still reference some of my professors' teachings. Boxing for me, I grew up around it. So my dad, he was a former competitor, and my parents actually met in the gym that he was running at the time in Brampton called Champions Boxing Club. And I always was around his students. I always understood the sport and how it operated, but it wasn't until I had a loss in my life where my grandfather had passed away, and it was very traumatic for myself. I was 13 years old. He had been one of my primary caregivers at the time, so I felt I lost a parent. And instead of me spending a lot of time outside on, let's say, the streets or hanging out with the wrong crowd because I was very angry at the world and I wasn't processing the experience very well, my grandmother decided to start sending me to my father's gym after school so that I could take all this active energy that I had and put it into something that was definitely a lot more positive, such as combat sports. The most memorable boxing achievement I have was my father's from Ecuador, and I had the opportunity to represent my country for the very first time a couple of years ago, right coming out of COVID. We went to Guayaquil, Ecuador for the Continental Championships, which is the entire championship of all the countries within America. And I got to win 3 incredible fights, even one against the hometown from Ecuador. And I got to win my very first gold medal for Canada, my very first continental championship for Canada, my very first international tournament for Canada within my country. That was very, very special for me. Sure, yeah. So it's a quote that even my performance coach, there's a very powerful metaphor that he told me when him and I first started working together. So part of my journey of understanding who I was and why I do what I do was having these deep conversations about who I am. And these are deep conversations that everybody should have about who they are. Because of my background and because of the way that I was going down a specific path with a lot of aggressive energy based on my experiences, there's a harnessed power that has to come from that, which my performance coach kind of identified. He's like, you have the power to either burn down the village, or you can use that light to help light it up. And that kind of corresponds with what Picasso had said, with the meaning of life is to find your gift, this ball of light, this ball of fire. And the meaning of that gift is to give it to others, so to light up the village rather than burn it down. Staying consistent, staying present in the moment. There's lots of things that we can expel our energy into, and it would be wasted if it's things that we just cannot control. So going into a fight, For example, when I go into fights, if I'm focused on just the result, then I'm doing it completely for the wrong reason, I'm doing it completely for the wrong purposes, and all my energy is going into something that isn't even in my control. And the same thing applies to everyday life. When you show up, you cannot control how certain people will respond to you. You cannot control the actions that other people may do. What you can control is how you show up in that moment, how you respond to the results that you get. That's what you can control. That's the only thing that you should be present on. Being comfortable being uncomfortable is a superpower. There is never going to be a time in this life where when you're achieving and going after the goals that you want, it's going to be a smooth sail. There's always going to be small tests along the way, whether or not you are at the position in your life where you can handle the next stage. So every next stage going towards your goal is going to require a better version of yourself. And that could be in an area of your person that you didn't know was going to be challenged. So you have to be ready to confront that. So this does come with experience. There will be moments where you have to take a step back, reevaluate, and kind of figure out how you're going to navigate taking that step forward again, which means an evolution within yourself. That applies everywhere, in any field, in anything, whether it's sports, business, relationships, whether it's family, romantic, it applies everywhere in life. Being able to have that mindset as well and being okay with stepping into the uncomfortable to be a better version of yourself, this is life. This is what life is. Yeah, my mom, she's a wonderful person. She's the hardest worker that I know. There's never been a time in my life where she's not working 3 jobs. And most of the time she doesn't really have to, but she just wants to. She loves to be productive and she loves to go into different fields. And I admire that a lot about her because she's on the go and she's a people person. She loves working with people. I really, really admire my coach, Gaetan Boutin. I really admire him, his wisdom, his patience, his philosophies. He's such an incredibly intelligent individual, and the poise that he has and the approach that he has to life is something that I'm continuously aspiring to become. I don't know if I'll ever reach that in my life. He's just such a wonderful person. And what he does so selflessly for all his athletes is just outstanding. All of us, I can attest for the whole team, we are constantly on this path to being better versions of ourselves because of this man. His guidance is just so profound. I really admire him. I love him very much. One word that I would use to describe myself is resilient, because I think that I've had so many different types of experiences that I don't believe every child should go through, but because of the way that I approached it and the way that I've overcome it, I am as successful as I am today with my sport, with my life, with my relationships, because I never gave up on myself. I always knew that there was something bigger and better, and I just had to keep showing up. So I personally am so grateful that us as women have the opportunity to compete in the same sport as men, that we can be at the Olympic Games just like the men. And I think it's so wonderful that we have the same opportunities now. I think we're in a great place. Personally, I can go and be a professional boxer. I can go into the UFC if I decided. I can pursue any sport that I would like to do at the highest world ranking level. So I think we've made amazing pathways. I think we're in a really good place right now. Yeah, it's preparation breeds confidence. So when you show up for yourself and you are getting ready for whatever it is in this life, whether it's a competition, whether it's a really important business meeting, whether it's a really important interview, when you take the time and the consideration to prepare 100% for something, that's where your confidence stems from. So for me, all my preparation leading up to these major tournaments that I have, most of the things that I reflect to myself before going into the fights or before going into a really, really big challenge is I have done absolutely everything in my power up to this moment to prepare for this. There's nothing left and nothing more I could have done. So whatever I come with today is exactly where I'm at, and I'm okay with that. And then I let go of the anxieties. I let go of anything that's, as we mentioned, not in my control. And I say, now it's time to just execute. Just bring what I have. I think any last advice I would say is always be comfortable and aware of who you are as a person, and really always, whenever things get messy, simplify. Always come back to who you are, learn who you are, understand who you are, so that you can always stick to your morals and your values. Whenever things get complicated, you can always go back to yourself and those morals and values. It's very important. It will guide you to the highest power that you have in this life. Always be centered with who you are as an individual. Be very comfortable with that.